What's going on, everyone? And if you're tuning in, you're here for the AMD 17 not, but a 19.7.3 Radeon Adrenalin update. For the software that's going to be here, we're going to go ahead and run a different test than what I normally kind of crack into. Let's go ahead and go to the overlays and get right to it. Now, normally I would jump right off on the bat and hit the Time Spy Extreme and just go for the 4K, but let's go for some variety. Let's try out and score some points on the Fire Strike portion of it. I think that might be kind of pretty fun. We're gonna go ahead and turn off the demo. I personally don't really care for it too much. I quite frankly think it consumes a little bit more of the runtime, but let's go ahead and get to it. We'll be talking a little bit more about like the patch notes itself. I'm running directly right now. It's just your native auto tune. Like I've noticed that there's been a lot of inconsistencies where I've like had a lot of people hitting me up on the forums and having to tell them to do clean installs, which helped a lot. Because if you're ever having a funky portion with installing this update and it's not working well, just try a real quick clean install or turn off the overclocks. I've noticed that the various portions that they kind of push forward now, especially with the architecture of the RDNA, focused into like more of these portions where they're pushing like more GPUs out than what they normally have. They're trying to fine tune them all, so they balance it, and sometimes there's going to be a losing end to some of the older cards versus the newer cards. They try to like balance both sides. That's why it's kind of nice that like the new Navi units directly have both sides of a newer architecture alongside the beefier portion of the tail end. So it's like we can run both of these games like on the tail end. So it's like the 5700 and the 5700X are not that bad of cards if you think about them in the regardless point of just like being able to bridge both the gaps. Just like sometimes when you go to play your old favorite PC game and like all of a sudden you're wondering like, wait, why can't I do this? But I need this software to align with this and the moon to be all like blue in this one very moment. These are the points that we kind of get into in order to physically be able to like run these. Now this is kind of nice being able to run this test the very first time with and without, just to see exactly what we're going to be able to benchmark. It doesn't seem too roughly bad. I mean, just for having the normal 19.7.2 Adrenalin software from AMD installed right now, it's not that bad. I kind of liked this update personally myself. The 19.6 point sagas, that was where personally myself I had noticed that there was a little inconsistencies with the overclocks. And right now, even though like my card isn't overclocked and it's just something in the auto simple tuning, it is huffing and puffing even with the like 27 to almost 30-ish, like on average you'd think about like frame rates. But this is the game pushing itself at the point of having it like in 4K, and it's dancing around with an actual physical portion of like HDR. Like so, it's like it is pushing itself to the max. I'd like to think that I kind of like. So it's like this is kind of cool. I like this test. Actually, very chill. Seems like my processor doesn't mind it at all. And then that's when my CPU catches on fire. No! We will be getting to the patch notes, ladies and gentlemen. I know that a lot of people would try to get in here and try to be like, hey, let's go down. I'd love to have those in like a little bit of a waymark right after we finish this. We'll go to the press release notes that are tethered to the physical portion of the install. I just wanted to have a regular one so we can face off regular and then do an overclock on the very end and just kind of follow that as the new trend of saving time and just kind of doing stuff. So that way we can kind of chronologue a lot of other tests a lot of the times to see like what we can actually physically do. And it'd be kind of nice to actually get like multiple like GPUs, like, but it's sad to say that Navi doesn't really support these. That was one thing that they weren't. You can even get like a crossfire situation with the Radeon 7 if you want to. I've seen some German creator that did a lot of that, and then I also heard another creator that had mentioned that it was very well plausible. I think it was Jay's 2 cents that had kind of chimed in with his 2 cents about like how AMD thinks it's like kind of dead, and this is where we're kind of going in the situation. Now that wasn't that bad. I like to think for a first point, the graphics test about 35 and 37. Not. I wish it was kind of pushing towards that middle range, but you can see where it kind of ramps up on these portions of what's going down. Now we can compare the results onto the online portion. Yes, let's go ahead and show the results and everything that I have directly tethered into like my rig if anyone was curious in that situation to what we're running the architecture. So you do have those portions. Now I am glad that I'm getting a little bit more and more of the portions of being able to pair of these. And let's see if we can't do that in a split second as I pull up this, go down, pull this down. Let's go ahead and pull up the press notes. And then we should be able to select it right there. Then there's our release notes right here. No thanks. Give me the release notes. I'm gonna hit refresh. There we go. Yay! Refreshing works for every time. Oh, cool. And this is our bench portion of that. Not too bad. Better than 75%. Not too shabby. Good crossfires turned off. I would be very curious to see. I have like 2 or 3 of those like Radeon 7s in line, which they've stopped production in, which is very interesting. Like they've hit their tail end mark. You can kind of see where my processing point, where I have that 4.5, I can overclock. Yes, it could be going towards that, but I wanted to go 4.6, but that was just too much. The draw on that was just like ridiculous for me, and I was like, nope, 4.5 is perfect for like that old school 67K. It works well. But let's go ahead and go back to our release notes. And this is where we obviously have a new game that's Among Us, Youngblood. Great game that I'm personally very excited. Cooperative game where you can run around and do a last stance on the cooperative portion of today's games. But if you look at it, it's up to 13% more performance with the Radeon software and the Adrenalin 2019 edition of the 19.7.3 in the Wolfenstein Youngblood than the Radeon software 2019 of the 19.7.2. So they're boasting that this is a 13%. It's a tailored fix for this. So if I had to take a wild guess, we'll probably see maybe minute increasements on the Fire Strike, but I'm gonna be real. A lot of these updates, like if you want to have like a World War Z one, go back to the points where they're talking about the press release of like this portion of game and this lined up, and then you'll probably see a pretty decent update. Now, these are older architectures that are built on, so they do come with their older bugs, and you can kind of see that the support also is for the Radeon GPU profiler for the Radeon RX 5700 series, among the Microsoft PIX on the Radeon RX 5700 graphics productions, the products and all those fun situations that we come into gameplay with those. So adding in the Vulkan support interface. Now this was huge. This is why it's like a lot of hubbub, a lot of people kind of looking into, because now as they add more of that, Vulkan support is one of the strongest portions of what they actually do have inside of the actual Radeon software, which is pretty cool. So it's nice to see that they're, extending the point of the display surface counter with the extension and the defines of the vertical blanks and the period counters and the associated with the displays and the surfaces. It provides a lot more portions for the counter. Wow. That should like make it look a little bit easier in the point of the surfaces. So like I see what they're doing here. They're pipelining. No pun intended, as that's the next portion of a lot of these situations in their older architecture, which would make sense why they're trying to do like a Vega, I think 64 remake with the 7 nanometer processing point past what the Radeon 7 is supposed to be. It's supposed to be more of like a that's where the Radeon 7 was more geared towards, I mean, gaming, yes, kind of, but it was more like the workstation. They're supposed to be pushing more like of the, I guess, game developable portionable points. But I'm more curious about Navi 14 and like the portions past that of what we'll be seeing next year's heavy hitters, because I heard they're trying to take on the RTX 2080 Ti and blow it out of the water now, like with the shaders and being like a 64 beyond processing point of like having like, I think it was like the shaders of 4096 plus. Like, holy crap, that's so cool. But after that, you see the portions of way that they provide a way of the per pipeline and the options, relaxing the rounding rules, and the mixtures and the floating value points. The shader cores is the extensions and the points of AMD specific shader cores properties for the physics drives. The subgroups and the size, the extension provides an additional control over subgroups and sizing, allowing the applications for the instance and the opt-in difference of the subgroup size of the devices and supporting more than just one. That's actually kind of useful. I would assume. The imageless frameless buffer. This is an extension that allows the frameless buffer to create without needing to create an image in the first, allowing the flexibility in how they can be utilizing and avoiding in the needless portion of the compatibility rules. Also in situations, because like I know Destiny's been locked out of like the newer portions of like the AMD processing, which is hilarious. Like, you were pissed. Um, and the variety points in the extensions that allows the amplifications and the levels and supports. So as it goes on, it's like the more portions of the variable points, and he digs into it. Now, this is probably where more of the interesting portion comes into play: the fixed issues, the known issues, and the important notes. So we have the fixed issues. Leaks of Legends may fail to the Radeon launch on the RX 5700 series with Windows 7. So they pretty much have tried to fix a lot of the Windows 7's issues, because that was on the hot list last time around. Now the RX 5700 series graphics card products may experience a DirectX application crash or hangups in experiencing the express upgrades of the Radeon software. Now, the Windows Mixed Reality may fail to launch when the Radeon image sharpening is enabled on the RX 5700 graphics cards productions. Audio may be out of sync with the videos when utilizing the Radeon Live Sync VR. Now, that's not a surprise, because we always notice that there are issues with those situations back there. And then you also come into gameplay where the values may be shown in the power gadgetry for the Wattman, while the applications are running on the Radeon 7. So that's just something that they've had with the Radeon 7. It doesn't really work that well with the Wattman too much. But I've noticed that a lot of people, the feedback that they give, and if you do leave a comment and you've had a specific issue with this, definitely let me know what graphics card you're running too. I'm very curious to see like what graphics we have underneath the hood as we all get this Adrenalin software upgrade, and what it does to each individual card. Like, I've never really had too much, but mine's very fresh for a situation. But you also notice that mine is on that list right there. Moving past that, and the AMD log utility drives may be failed onto the Windows 7 system configuration. So again, 7's not firing out completely, but it is getting there. Radeon Anti-Lag may experience slight performance drops in some of the game applications when enabled. Minor shutterings may occur when playing Fortnite during the first few minutes of gameplay on the AMD RX 5700, as it irons out the few little wrinkles that you have in that universe. Since it is a very variable point of FPS, it's hard to judge that, so the game's probably just yawning to the big world of what's going on. And then the Radeon overlay may experience flickering in the Vulkan API games when Radeon image sharpening is enabled. So it seems like they're having an issue with the Radeon image sharpening, just like I have an issue with not yawning from like the full sentence. With the Radeon overlays may experience flickering. With that, the corruption may also be observed in some tests when running the Adobe Premiere Pro 2019 benchmarks. So there are ironable out points. Now, the known issues that they have that everyone's been kind of like talking about is some of the configurations may be experienced with the green color corruption after the install of the Radeon software. And again, if you do get these things, try a clean install, see if that works. But you'll have to reset a lot of the settings. It's kind of annoying, but it will fix things. The shutters may be experienced when the Radeon FreeSync is enabled. The portion of 240 hertz, my dear glob, that is crazy. Refresh display on the Radeon RX 5700. And again, these are a lot the tailored portions of that. The Radeon performance metrics may report incorrect VRAM utilization, and the AMD Radeon 7 experience elevated memory clocks at idle or at desktop, which explains a lot of the crashes and the instabilities here and there. A Radeon overlay may intermittently fail to appear when toggled in-game. Holy crap. I need to hurry this up. A, because I'd like to keep the sharp, but B, so I can try to get a nap in between shifts. But the Radeon RX 5700 series graphics card may experience a Toledo blank black screen during the uninstallation of the Windows 7 configuration. Workaround to perform an install in a safe mode that will help you and save you in the situation. Besides, the situation of the audio clips may be corrupted when you grab that in the Radeon Relive, but I've always been a big portion as we go down here with the recording clips of the Radeon Relive resulting in these blank clips. With the newer card, I've always been anti, just utilize OBS. That's what I utilize. It's ironed out. It may have its bugs here and there, but at least you're not going to be in the tail end of going like, holy crap, I put a lot of work into this and now it didn't work. But their software will be good eventually. Not going in for Yon 3. I'm going in for the enabled enhanced sync or cause game may applications or systems to crash on the RX 5700. So if you have the RX 5700 or the RX 5700 ET or XT version, I believe, and or the Lisa Sue version, if you're having issues with it, definitely drop a comment. I would very well be interested to hear what you have to say about this card, because I was going to pick it up, but it didn't really pan out for me. So it panned out for me in the very end when I just was like, oh, cool, you know. But let's go ahead and take a last look at our test. This is our score that we're going to be trying to beat as we kind of get into the situation. And then at that portion in time, what I'm going to look at is, I think my results are right here, where we can kind of see what I've done so far. Not too shabby. Between the Fire Strike, the first one that I ran on top of here. Let's go ahead and install. Now, I'm not going to do a clean install because that was a nightmare last time I did it, and quite frankly, I just wanted it to be really fast. And it did a clean install in the beginning of the 19.7. I think I'll start to do. I'll probably do clean installs during the portions of anytime it flips over to a new 19 point whatever variant, versus the variants that come into the 19.7 or 19.6 or 19 point etc. Those seem to be like quite fine to do quick installs because it's just building off of that little sliver versus something that's like a middle brick, which means it's a bigger portion of the 7 or 6 saga and so on. It's doing a rather quick job of installing, I'll give it that much. It's very eager to digest this new processing and, you know, what is it, 12-bit binary or some shit like that. Dum dum dum. Anti-lag, it's so cool. I like their image sharpening. The quality of what they're getting into, like in this day and age and this point in time of having those let me help you. And even like I think Intel and AMD are working together nowadays to try to better and strengthen. So it's nice to see this big race to they just build technology better for everyone. It just makes sense. I don't get it why this thing before was just the whole point of it was let's just make money and barely release anything. I'm like, no, it's not fun. Show us like the cutting edge of like the Porsche and make that a sloth, and then make a new Porsche. It makes the sloth seem like a sloth, which doesn't really make sense. But it's just a sloth that acts like a sloth. That is a sloth. Alright, cool. We're almost completely done. Seems like it installed a bigger portion of what's going on in the very breaking point. Seems like it's gridlocked on 58 for a split second. It's probably just going to release the lobby. So just I feel like my freaking yawn. Any moment now. If you'd like to prove me right, yes, there we go. My yawn broke the levee. But then my computer got tired and said, no, I'm going to take a nap and then I'll think about it. A lazy computer. At least we get to see all these really cool slides about image sharpening that everyone doesn't really have yet. Oh yay, we did it! Restart now. Harambe. Dun 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 dun. The restart's not that bad. Like my computer's pretty good about restarting and just doing its thing. I'd very much like you to reinstall nothing. Reset. One day. It'll be able to recognize what I say, and it'll be like, oh shit, he totally didn't want us to do that. And I'll be like, yeah, exactly what I didn't want you to do. Did it anyway. Okay, there we go. With that being installed, let's go ahead and crack into opening our lovely portion of 3D Mark. It's that tool. I can just go through my Steam. I could just do directly. That's probably just easier at that portion of time. You gotta love up startup times. Computers are all great until you do startup times. Like WTF, mate. Once that opens, I should be able to shut this that way. Not using some background CPU processing. Alright. Demo. And this is where the fun begins, because now we'll be waging war against the very portion of the beginning of the update and a natural install, and then going into the very latter end with the newer update and the natural install, and then the overclock. Now my guess, I don't know, it seems like this might improve a little bit just because I think that they're getting better at the updates, but I do think that this is very tailored to Wolfenstein, or more of like a, you know, Bethesda style video game. That cape is so cool. But this reminds me a lot of the Matrix. I don't know why. The fire strike of all things reminds me of Matrix a little bit, but it definitely does. It has that whole like Morpheus walking around the subway looking for the one. But very excited for the Threadripper news that's been kind of pouring out into the news lately, especially with a lot of social creators covering these situations. It's really cool. Even like a portion of Threadripper 4. I was like, WTF me, that's pretty crazy. But the whole concept is sound of them pushing products and what they're going towards, since Genesis is one of the newer portions of what they're going to be going towards, and 64 cores is rumored or on the horizon within, you know, very reliable like um, leaks within the industry. So it's like there's a lot of exciting things, and like obviously they don't want to outdo themselves too much where the portion of like Rome becomes obsolete, but that's not the case here. They're just going to utilize probably more of a faster DDR memory that's going to go on there and just beef up one, make it more desirable, and the other is going to have a little bit more better clock speed, which works for the agenda of people that need that thread ripping power with a faster clock speed rather than the portion with the Rome, where it's just like, yeah, it's a workhorse, but just doesn't have a really fast clock speed. But I mean, you know, ebbs and flows. Certain processors are going to be good with certain things, and as they push on, and so on and so on. So excited to see at the end of the year. More than likely, we're looking at September, October, and if they do release like bigger core points, obviously these things will be something that they release later on, and tangible points of these. This part's so cool. Yeah, they're just fighting. Crap. All right. And let's go ahead and see. Very interesting. So you can see that we went down some, like in score points and the details. So if we go back to here, let's see if we can pull it. I was hoping it would show FPS on that portion, but it should show it on the 3D Mark portion of it. So I mean 35 and 20, obviously proportion before we were looking towards almost 37, and maybe 1 FPS a little short than that on that portion. This definitely came up a little bit, so I'm very curious to see what's going to happen once we click on that overdrive, considering we were having a lot of issues with the overclocks and the stability of portions. Now instantly it told me I need to do something. Stay up to date on the Radeon has been restored due to failure. Well, yeah, you tend to do that a little bit often, but it definitely is like more up to date with keeping us into the loop of when it does do that. So I definitely think that that's pretty cool. And I like to stay up to date with these portions. You can always sign up and they show you what's going down. But let's go ahead and go to our game settings. Go to our Wattman. And we're going to just go to our normal auto clock. Normal overclock on the GPU, hit apply. GPU kind of like rah rah rah. Hear me roar. Oh, look at that. Auto clock was successful. Very nice. Let's see what we can do. Now we can always do with the manual portion over. I just like doing these as like what the safest portion within its own very casing. So let's go ahead and go back. Go to more tests. Go to Fire Strike. Go ahead and hit our run. Let's see what happens here. Fingers crossed we come out ahead, and it's by a long shot because they just tuned it really well and they just made the bass a little bit more decent. So I mean, it's always been pretty strong out the gate, but getting to the mid 40s and going up is pretty good. So if it drops below 30, then I'll start to worry, but it's just dancing on the very borderland of that. Nothing super crazy. It seems like more fighting towards, whoa, what up to 50s. My GPU is getting loud. This is the more interesting part, just because we'll see the more fatiguing portion of what this is. Alright, there's the creepy freaking creature. Looking for Morpheus. Always is. Alright, last test. And then we'll have our results. We can compare the three and see what came in. So far it seems like this is more critique towards Wolfenstein, so congratulations for all you die-hard fans, people out there. You might maybe see some increasements across the board of other Alight games within there. But yeah, but that's a way of running things a little different on their OSs. And the combined test. Where shall we go? No way the background crumbles and they're so cool. Oh, okay. I feel like that was way ridiculously higher. Okay, and a shitload. 37, 26. Then let's go ahead and compare. Shut this down since we are done with the test. As you can see, a huge difference in running like in proportion to time spy, obviously different portions of test, but today we started at 3, we go to 2, damn, we finished tough with 1. But I think that was very good in the portions of all the install. If you are newer to the network, thank you so much for sticking around and to this very end. This portion, I'll go ahead and switch over and say goodbye to everyone and hi to everyone been sticking to and been staying into these situations. Drop a comment down below, and if you subscribe to the network, I'll eat a cupcake. But anyways, all hilarity aside, and hopefully my calorie count not going over 9,000 due to cupcakes, I appreciate your time that you've invested into these, and I very much enjoy and like doing these patch notes just because they're really fun. They showcase the newer Adrenalin softwares that AMDs are dropping, with especially the newer cards and the older cards. I take a lot of joy of hearing what people are doing and how their cards are treating them along these roadmaps of, you know, keeping these things alive. But this is your boy MacGyver7 saying have a very nice day, and I'll see you guys and gals in the near future as we all enjoy the AMD product line that comes out, and very curious to see where Intel and Nvidia fire back with. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff in the network of like the next few years of what we're going to be getting ourselves into. But I'll see you guys and gals in the near future, and have a very nice day.